Welcome back, YouTube. Today we're going to go through an arm workout. So we're going to go through a workout for triceps, biceps. In a similar fashion to the previous videos, I'm going to walk through maybe base sort of 4 to 6 exercises to give you an idea of what an arm session might look like. You know, exercise selection and order, how to put things together, why we're putting things in certain order, and again visual and verbal cues of certain exercises to make sure that if you want to choose those exercises to include in your workout, you know how to perform them correctly. Again, if you do find this video helpful, useful, please do drop a like. If you want to see anything in particular, please do drop a comment, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe. Now again, this is just an example, okay? You might not even want a separate arm session in your split, okay? But again, going from previous workout videos that I've done, you know, you could use these examples as add-ons to the previous sessions. So you could use these exercises as add-ons to an upper body session, to a lower session. So the choice for you to have a bit of freedom with it is there. Now, the way we're going to structure this workout is pretty simple, okay? We're going to have the first 2 exercises are going to challenge the short range of the biceps and triceps, okay? We're going to challenge the short range first, because if we are fatigued in the lengthened range or lengthened to mid-range before we target the short range, we're going to struggle to get as much out of that movement, okay? Because we have to go for that lengthened mid-range before we get to the short range. So we're going to target the short range first. We're then going to go into the lengthened range, and then to finish off, I'm just going to go use movements. I'm going to go for that mid-range, just to basically try and get as much out of the range in the biceps, triceps as possible. So for the bicep curls, we're going to start off with a preacher curl, okay? So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get a preacher bench, or you can just use a bench in itself and set that angle, set that incline up to a relatively steep one, maybe like 70-ish, 80-ish degrees, okay? And we're going to train one arm at a time. We're going to use dumbbells, or you could even use a cable machine if you wanted. If you set the attachment down to the bottom, use a D-handle. You could use a cable machine as well if you put the preacher bench or the bench itself facing into the cable machine, okay? Now, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. What you want to do is you want to try and make sure that your tricep or bottom of your arm is always forced down onto the bench as you're curling all the way through, okay? The last thing we want to do is, as we're curling, letting this arm actually come off the bench, okay? We always want to keep that locked in. So as you go through the movement, make sure we're always driving that arm into the bench, into the support. Use your support in free hand to maybe hold on to the bench again to add a bit more stability. Drop to a comfortable depth. Watch out how far we are dropping. You know, we don't want to drop to a depth that is, you know, going to put the elbow in any compromised position. But at the same time, we probably want to get as much range as possible. So make sure that the depth that you drop into is comfortable, but we're getting as much out of that as possible. Other than that, try your best to make sure that elbow and shoulder stay relatively in line with each other. But a nice, straight, simple forward move. Then we're going to go straight in to a push-down variant with triceps. Okay, there's going to be a few you can do here. In all honesty, the one I've chosen is a seated cable crossover push-down, because with it being seated, it adds a little bit more stability. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to use a cable machine. You're going to put the attachments up to the top. You're going to put a bench facing into the machine with a very slight, steep incline, but dropping it back just one from vertically upright. Now what you want to do with this movement is, again, we want to keep that arm pinned back all the way through, and we want to have it slightly flared out so it's following the line of that cable, okay? Because we're going to have opposite hand to side of cable, so we're basically going to be pushing down and across. The cable's going to be coming across us, so we want to make sure that elbow is flared slightly so it's in line with that cable, and we always want to make sure it's staying pinned back. So as we go through the movement, this upper arm isn't moving forward at all. Again, make sure you go for that full range, make sure we're locking out, make sure we come as high as we can until our arm wants to come forward. Once we've done them 2, we're then going to go on to the next 2 movements. For the biceps, we're going to go into a standing length forward bicep curl. Okay, again, we're going to use the cable machine for this. Bring the attachments down to the bottom, and we want to use a bench that we can lean into to, again, give us some stability. Okay, so put that bench again on a relatively steep incline, maybe like 70-ish degrees, and we're going to want to lean into that bench. Okay, we're going to have the cables, use D handles, behind us. Again, we want to keep these arms relatively pinned back, and we're simply just going to curl up. Okay, again, we're always leaning into this bench. We're using that support of that bench. But as we curl, again, as we get to the top, we're trying to keep this arm pinned back. We don't want too much movement of the arm coming forward. Again, get all that range, make sure we're locking out at the bottom, but relatively nice, straightforward movement. Then we're going to go on to tricep, and we're going to use a behind the neck tricep extension. Okay, so what we're going to do for this movement is you're going to want to set the cable attachments so they're relatively close to shoulder height, maybe slightly above, and then you're going to want to set the bench so it's facing out of the cable machine. Okay, again, relatively steep, maybe one back from vertical, and again, that having it in a seated position is going to help us create a little bit more stability so we can actually drive into that bench. What we're going to do is we're going to grab opposite side to hand again, and we're going to have these cables coming behind us. So again, they're going to be coming in a diagonal fashion. Okay, so behind us are going to be coming in a diagonal fashion. We're going to have our arms up, elbows up. So always think elbows want to stay almost parallel with the floor, and then we're simply thinking about driving straight through our elbows, again following that path of the cable. Again, like I said, drive into that bench to make sure that we're being as stable as possible. Again, get as much range as you can, but make sure we do lock out at the end. Okay, and then to finish off for the biceps, we're going to go into a simple seated bicep curl. Okay, because it's going to challenge the mid-range pretty well. So what we're going to do is, again, set that bench up so it's vertical, if not slightly back. One, we're going to be using dumbbells again to let the wrists move freely. And again, throughout the movement, we just want to make sure this upper arm is staying pinned back. We don't want the upper arm moving forward too much. Make sure we lock out, get that full range, but keep that arm pinned back. We're using the bench, so drive ourselves into the bench to add a little bit more stability. And then lastly, for triceps, we're going to do another behind the neck extension, but it's going to be slightly different to the one we did previously. This time we are going to be stood up, so it's not going to add as much stability. However, we're going to do one arm at a time, so we can use our separate arm or non-working arm hand to add a little bit of stability. So what we're simply going to do is we're going to set the attachment of the cable up so it is just above us. We're going to grab that cable and we want it coming onto the opposite side of our head. Okay. Use your non-supporting arm. You're literally going to push against the working bicep. Okay, that's going to create the stability. And then you're simply thinking, driving straight through the elbow, all the way through. You're going to lock out again. We're going to come back as far as we can, get as much range as we can, and again, driving straight through the elbow. Nice and straightforward, but make sure we are using this non-working hand to really drive against the working arm to create that stability. So there you have it, an example of an arm workout that you can include, or again, an example of potentially some movements that you can add on to other exercises if you're not wanting to have an arm session by itself. Again, hopefully you found that helpful. If you did, please do drop a like. If you've got any questions on it, you want to see anything in particular, drop them in the comments. If you haven't already, please do subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. I'll catch you on the next one.